My husband left me for a woman who flaunted designer bags worth more than most people's salaries. What he didn't know was that every single naira she spent came from a company I secretly owned. This is a true story from Lagos, Nigeria, about a man who thought he was trading up, a mistress who thought her money made her untouchable, and a wife who let them both think they had won until the day she decided to show them who really held the power. If you've ever been underestimated, if someone has ever left you thinking they found something better, you need to hear what happened when the truth finally came out. Hit that subscribe button because this story is about to teach you something about patience, power, and the sweet taste of justice served ice cold. Let me tell you about Adunni Bakare. Adunni was 34 years old, married to Tunde Bakare for 8 years, and by all appearances, she was exactly what Lagos society expected her to be. The perfect wife, quiet, supportive, always standing slightly behind her successful husband at social events, smiling graciously while he received all the credit for their comfortable lifestyle. Tunde owned 3 successful restaurants in Victoria Island and Lekki. People knew him as a self-made man, someone who had built something from nothing. At industry events, he would tell the story of how he started with a small booker in Surulere and expanded into fine dining establishments that served both local and continental cuisine. What people didn't know was how he got the capital for that first restaurant, or the second one, or the third one. Adunni never corrected anyone when they praised her husband's business acumen. She would just smile and nod, playing the role of the grateful wife who was blessed to marry such an ambitious man. But every night when Tunde fell asleep, Adunni would open her laptop and manage an empire he knew nothing about. See, Adunni's grandfather had been one of the early importers of luxury goods into Nigeria back in the 1970s. When he died, he left everything to his granddaughter, not his sons, not his male relatives, but to the quiet girl who had sat with him every evening, learning about business while everyone else assumed she was just keeping an old man company. By the time Adunni married Tunde, she owned controlling shares in 5 import companies, 2 luxury retail chains, and a logistics firm that handled high-end goods for the entire West African region. Her annual income? Over 100 million naira. But she had made a decision early in her marriage to let Tunde believe he was the provider, the successful one, the head of the house. She thought it would make him happy. She thought it would keep their marriage strong. She was wrong. The first sign of trouble came 2 years ago, when Tunde started working late more often. Then came the new clothes, the expensive cologne, the way he would smile at his phone during dinner. But it was the day she saw the receipt that everything became clear. Tunde had left his jacket on their bed, and when Adunni picked it up to hang it in the closet, a receipt fell out. 25,000 naira at a jewelry store on Victoria Island for a women's bracelet. Adunni looked at her own wrist, bare except for her simple wedding ring. That night, she hired a private investigator. His name was Detective Johnson, and within a week, he had given Adunni a complete dossier on her husband's secret life. Her name was Chinelo Okafor, 26 years old, a lifestyle influencer with over 200,000 Instagram followers. She posted daily about luxury shopping, expensive restaurants, weekend trips to Dubai, and designer bags that cost more than most people's annual salary. But here's what caught Adunni's attention: the source of Chinelo's wealth. According to Detective Johnson's report, Chinelo claimed to be the owner of a high-end boutique in Lekki Phase 1 called Opulent Luxe. The boutique specialized in designer bags, shoes, and accessories imported directly from Milan, Paris, and New York. The business appeared incredibly successful. Chinelo's Instagram was filled with videos of her unpacking shipments of Hermes bags, Louboutin shoes, and exclusive pieces that wealthy Lagos women fought over. What Chinelo didn't know, what nobody knew, was that opulent luxe was supplied exclusively by one of Adunni's import companies. Every single bag Chinelo sold, every designer shoe, every piece of jewelry that she used to build her lifestyle brand and attract Adunni's husband was purchased through Adunni's supply chain. The irony was so perfect, it almost felt planned by the universe itself. For 6 months, Adunni watched her marriage crumble, while Chinelo posted photos of gifts from her mystery man. Designer bags that Adunni's company had imported, jewelry that Adunni's suppliers had sourced, luxury items that technically Adunni owned before they ever reached Chinelo's boutique. Then came the evening that changed everything. Tunde came home late, smelling like expensive perfume that wasn't Adunni's, and announced that he wanted a divorce. "I've fallen in love with someone else," he said, not even having the courtesy to sit down for the conversation. "Someone who understands my ambitions, someone who matches my energy." Adunni looked up from her laptop where she had been reviewing quarterly reports from her companies. "Someone who matches your energy?" she repeated quietly. "Adunni, you're a good woman," Tunde continued, his voice taking on the patronizing tone he used when he thought he was being generous. "But you've never really understood business. You've never been ambitious. This woman I'm with, she built her own empire. She's successful in her own right." The word empire almost made Adunni laugh out loud. "How successful?" she asked. "She owns a multi-million naira business," Tunde said proudly. "She's everything I need in a partner, someone who can stand beside me as an equal." An equal. Adunni closed her laptop and looked at her husband. Really looked at him. "And you think I can't be your equal?" "Adunni, please don't make this harder than it needs to be," Tunde said. "You've never worked a day in your life. You've been comfortable because of what I've built. But I need more than comfort now. I need inspiration." The next morning, Tunde moved out. Within a week, his relationship with Chinelo went public on Instagram. Photos of them at expensive restaurants, videos of her showing off new gifts, posts about how blessed she was to have found a real man who appreciates a strong, independent woman. The comments on her posts were everything you'd expect. Goals: a woman who doesn't need a man but chooses to be with one. This is what happens when you're successful in your own right. Boss babe energy: you deserve all the luxury. Meanwhile, Adunni became the subject of Lagos gossip. The abandoned wife, the woman who wasn't enough for her successful husband. Whispers followed her to the market, to church, to every social gathering. "Poor Adunni," people would say. "What will she do now? She has no skills, no business, no way to support herself." Some of her friends offered her pity jobs. Others suggested she move back with her family. A few well-meaning relatives tried to set her up with older men who might be willing to marry a divorced woman with no prospects. Adunni listened to all of this with the patience of someone who knew something nobody else did. For 3 months, she watched Chinelo's Instagram stories grow more extravagant. Trips to London paid for by Tunde. Shopping sprees in Dubai. A new Range Rover that Chinelo claimed was a gift from her amazing man who supports my dreams. But Adunni was also watching her business reports. Opulent Lux's orders from her supply company had tripled since Chinelo started dating Tunde. The boutique was buying more inventory than ever before, taking advantage of Tunde's financial support to expand their luxury offerings, which meant that indirectly, Tunde was funding his mistress's purchases from his wife's company. The poetry of it was almost too perfect. Then came the day Adunni decided she was finished being underestimated. It started with a phone call to her lawyer. "I want to proceed with the divorce," she told him. "But I have some specific requests about how we handle the asset division." Her lawyer, Mr. Adeleke, had been the family's attorney for years. He was one of the few people who knew the truth about Adunni's wealth. "Are you sure about this approach?" he asked, after she explained her plan. "You could simply reveal everything now and end this quickly." "Where's the lesson in that?" Adunni replied. "Some people need to learn through experience." The divorce proceedings began exactly as everyone expected. Tunde's lawyer demanded alimony, claiming that Adunni had become accustomed to a certain lifestyle that she couldn't maintain on her own. Adunni's lawyer agreed to the alimony without argument. Tunde got the restaurants, the cars, and their shared properties. Adunni asked for nothing except to keep her grandfather's house in Ikoyi, a request that Tunde granted magnanimously, thinking he was being generous by letting her have the old family home. What Tunde didn't realize was that the house was worth 40 million naira and was just one small piece of an inheritance he had never bothered to ask about. During this time, Chinelo's Instagram presence became even more prominent. She started posting business tips for other women, positioning herself as a successful entrepreneur who had built her empire through hard work and determination. The secret to success, she posted in one video while showing off her boutique, is believing in yourself and never depending on anyone else. "I built this business from nothing, and now I can afford any luxury I want." The irony was delicious, but Adunni wasn't finished. On the day their divorce was finalized, Adunni sent Chinelo a business proposal. It was professional, formal, and sent through Adunni's company's official channels. The proposal was simple. Adunni's import company wanted to offer opulent luxe an exclusive partnership that would give them access to even more luxury brands and better wholesale prices. The proposal was signed by Adunni's CEO, which was Adunni herself, though the signature was in her maiden name, which Chinelo wouldn't recognize. Chinelo's response was immediate and enthusiastic. This partnership would elevate her boutique to the next level, giving her access to brands that other Lagos boutiques could only dream of carrying. A meeting was scheduled for the following week at Adunni's office in Victoria Island. The building was impressive, 30 floors of gleaming glass and steel, with marble floors and contemporary African art decorating the lobby. When Chinelo arrived, dressed in head-to-toe designer clothing that she had purchased from Adunni's supply chain, she was clearly trying to project success and confidence. She was led to the top floor, to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lagos Island. And there, sitting behind a mahogany desk in a tailored navy suit, was Adunni. The recognition took a few seconds to hit. Chinelo's confident smile faltered, then disappeared entirely. "Mrs. Bakare," she said, her voice uncertain. "Actually," Adunni said calmly, "it's Ms. Adelaja now. I've gone back to my maiden name." She gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Please sit down. We have a lot to discuss." Chinelo remained standing, her mind clearly racing. "I don't understand," she said. "The meeting was supposed to be with the CEO of Adelaja Import Holdings." "That would be me," Adunni replied. "I founded this company 12 years ago. We're the largest luxury goods importer in West Africa, with annual revenues of approximately 100 million naira." The color drained from Chinelo's face. "That's impossible," she whispered. Adunni opened a folder on her desk and pulled out several documents. These are the purchase orders from Opulent Luxe over the past 2 years, she said, sliding them across the desk. Every bag you've sold, every shoe, every piece of jewelry that built your empire came through my company. Chinelo's hands shook as she looked at the documents. Her boutique's letterhead, her signature, purchase orders totaling millions of naira. The Hermes bag you posted last week? Adunni continued conversationally. We imported that. The Louboutin shoes you wore to dinner with my ex-husband? Our shipment from Paris? The diamond earrings you claimed were a gift from your successful man? We sourced those from our contact in Antwerp. Chinelo sank into the chair, her carefully constructed confidence crumbling. But this means, she started, this means that every time you posted about being an independent boss babe, every time you talked about building your empire from nothing, every time you claimed not to need anyone, you were completely dependent on a company owned by the woman whose husband you stole. The silence in the office was deafening. Why? Chinelo finally asked. Why didn't you tell him? Why did you let me think? Let you think what? Adunni asked. That you were better than me? That you deserved my husband because you were more successful? That you were an inspiration to other women? Because you had built something I never could? Chinelo couldn't meet her eyes. I wanted to see how far you would take it, Adunni continued. I wanted to see if you would show any humility, any awareness that perhaps things weren't exactly as they seemed. But instead, you doubled down. You made yourself into a symbol of female empowerment while being completely supported by systems you didn't even know existed. Adunni leaned back in her chair. Do you know what the most interesting part of this whole situation is, Chinelo? Chinelo shook her head. Tunde left me because he thought you were more ambitious than I was. He wanted a woman who could match his energy, someone who understood business, someone who was his equal. Adunni smiled. What he actually did was leave a woman who owns a 100 million naira empire for a woman who runs a boutique that exists entirely at that woman's pleasure. The reality of her situation was finally hitting Chinelo. What are you going to do? She asked quietly. That depends, Adunni said. What do you think I should do? Chinelo was silent for a long moment. I didn't know, she said finally. I swear, I didn't know who you were. But would it have mattered, Adunni asked? If you had known that I was financially successful, would you have treated me differently? Would you have thought twice about taking my husband? Chinelo didn't answer. The truth is, Adunni continued, my wealth was never the point. You took my husband because you thought you could, because you thought I was weak, dependent, unimportant. The money just makes the irony more poetic. Adunni stood up and walked to the window overlooking Lagos. I have a choice to make now, she said. I could terminate our business relationship with Opulent Luxe immediately. Without our supply chain, your boutique would last maybe 2 months before running out of inventory. Chinelo's breathing became shallow. Or, Adunni continued, I could continue our business relationship under new terms, terms that reflect the reality of our situation. What kind of terms? Chinelo asked. Adunni turned back to face her. You close your Instagram account permanently. You stop posting about luxury lifestyles and female empowerment. You stop pretending to be something you're not. Chinelo looked stricken. My followers, my brand, your brand is built on lies, Adunni said firmly. You're not a self-made businesswoman. You're a retailer who got lucky with a good supplier. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's everything wrong with pretending it's something else. Adunni walked back to her desk. In exchange, I'll offer you a new contract with better wholesale prices and exclusive access to some brands that no other Nigerian retailer carries. Your boutique can still be successful, but it will be successful honestly. Chinelo stared at her. And if I refuse? Then you refuse, Adunni said with a shrug. But I should mention that I also own the building where your boutique is located. The lease comes up for renewal next month. The game was over, and they both knew it. 2 weeks later, Chinelo's Instagram account disappeared. Her last post was a simple message, taking time to focus on personal growth and learning. Thank you for your support. Tunde called Adunni the day after Chinelo's social media went dark. What did you do to her? He demanded. I offered her a business opportunity, Adunni replied calmly. She decided it wasn't right for her. Adunni, I know you're behind this somehow. Tunde, she said, her voice patient but firm. You left me because you thought I wasn't ambitious enough for you. You wanted a woman who could match your success. I respect that decision. But I'm curious though, Adunni interrupted. Now that you know your girlfriend's business success was largely dependent on my supply chain, does that change how you feel about her ambition? There was silence on the line. What are you talking about? Tunde asked, though his voice suggested he was beginning to understand. Ask Chinelo about Adelaja Import Holdings, Adunni said. Ask her where Opulent Luxe gets its inventory. Ask her about the meeting she had in Victoria Island 2 weeks ago. She hung up. Tunde called back 6 times that day. Adunni didn't answer. 3 months later, Chinelo and Tunde broke up. Without her Instagram presence and the mystique of her lifestyle brand, their relationship couldn't survive the reality of who they both actually were. Today, Adunni still runs her import empire from her office in Victoria Island. She's expanded into 3 new African countries and recently started a foundation that provides business training and microloans to women entrepreneurs. Chinelo still runs Opulent Luxe, but under the new contract terms, she's actually become quite successful in her own right, building a reputation for honest business practices and quality customer service rather than social media flashiness. And Tunde? He still runs his 3 restaurants, though business has been slower since his divorce. Turns out that some of his success had been tied to connections and contracts that trace back to Adunni's business network. The most important lesson from this story isn't about revenge or even justice, it's about assumptions. Tunde assumed that because Adunni was quiet, she was weak. Because she was supportive, she was dependent. Because she didn't flaunt her success, she wasn't successful. Chinelo assumed that because she had money and followers, she was powerful. Because she could afford luxury goods, she was actually successful. Because she was visible, she was important. Both of them learned that the most dangerous person to underestimate is the one who lets you think you're winning while they're quietly holding all the cards. Sometimes the real power in the room belongs to the person who doesn't need to prove they have it. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been underestimated or had someone think they could do better than you, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Hit that notification bell for more stories about people who learned not to judge by appearances. And remember, the quietest person in the room might just be the one who owns the building.